Hello everybody. I just wanted to give you guys a new tool to work with. We've been working in App Lab and be interested in your feedback on that tool. This is Scratch. You can get there by going to this address, scratch.mit.edu. It is a project by MIT, and this is if you've used Scratch, haven't used Scratch for a year or so, this is kind of the updated version. It's a Scratch 3.0. You will want to join Scratch if you haven't yet. It's free. You just need an email address, and that will allow you to save your work and share your work and do all kinds of other things. So it's definitely worth joining. So I'm going to sign in, assuming that I remember my sign in, which I thankfully do. But you are going to, after you join Scratch, I'm just going to take you on a quick tour of it, but you're going to use the create option up here to create a new project. But I'm going to sign in, take you on a quick tour, and I'm going to go to create. Scratch is a block-based code, just like App Lab is. Unlike App Lab, there isn't a place, as far as I'm aware, in Scratch to flip between blocks and text. So if you're interested in that, currently I don't think Scratch does that. Scratch does. Here's how Scratch is set up. There are categories of blocks, just like App Lab. Okay, so when I click on here, I think they call these the drawers. Sorry. And then you can drag these codes out here. Now, an important thing in Scratch to be aware of is the thing you are coding for is highlighted down here. These are called sprites. Okay, so right now the default is that you have this little cat here. Okay, you can actually pick the cat up and move him to a different position. Okay, when you do that, you can actually see down here the X and Y coordinates of that position. That will be important probably for you as you move things around the screen. Okay, so just be aware of that because that is useful. This area, the background, is called the stage, okay, or the backdrops, and you can change the stage by clicking choose a backdrop. Okay, they have a whole bunch of pre-done ones. All right, so if I click basketball 1, that becomes the backdrop of the stage. Okay. You can change backdrops. Backdrops are meant to be sort of a static background that you don't do anything with. You can change it, meaning like you can change a location. So if I wanted to choose a backdrop and say baseball, okay, I could add a new one. Okay, well, there's codes for that over here under looks. Okay, so under looks, I can say switch backdrop to, and then I have basketball, baseball, next, random. Okay, so you can have additional backdrops. Okay, choose a backdrop. You can paint a backdrop. You can push surprise and get a surprise backdrop. You can even upload a backdrop. So let's say that you have a map for a social studies class and you want kids to interact with the map. That could be the backdrop as a blank map, for example. Okay. Other things you want to know is this is the sprite, and then you can choose the size of the sprite by typing in and hitting enter. So I made it 80 instead of 100 size. And then the direction lets you choose which direction this is facing. Okay. All right. So that's a little bit different maybe than the previous version of Scratch. There was a button up here for like shrinking and enlarging something. Okay. So we have a sprite. And we have some code here, and I snap together, move 10 steps and switch the backdrop, and I'm going to just say to the next backdrop, okay? And it's showing me all kinds of things here. So if I click on backdrops tab here, you could actually edit a backdrop, okay? So I could actually draw on top of the backdrop. I don't have any reason to do that right now. This button is very useful. This is like undo, okay? So you can go back several steps. But here's my first backdrop, basketball, my second backdrop, baseball. That's technically my third because my first backdrop, which was blank. If I don't want it anymore, this happens with backdrops and sprites. This little X up in the top, if I just click that, that goes away. Okay, same thing with this here. Okay, sprites you can add, draw, upload, or get a surprise one. You can paint them. Okay, so that's up to you as well. All right. So if I want this to actually do something, there's two things I could do. I, as the one coding it, can double click on a block. In fact, I'll separate this. If I double click on this block, you'll see the cat moves 10 steps. Okay, this is in the X direction. X is horizontal. Okay, if I snap them both together, it should do both. Yep, so it keeps flipping between the two. He's moving and the background's changing. Okay, that's helpful for you, but it's not helpful for someone viewing your project. Okay, so you want something, and we haven't talked about this yet, but you're going to create something with events. So if I click on events over here, so all an event is in computer science is a trigger for something to happen. So on your phones, you don't just have your phone automatically making phone calls. You have to push a button to connect a call or to send a text or to push a button on a game. Okay, so this is a similar idea. You can see the different types of things that trigger an event. Probably the most common one is when the green flag is clicked. So let's say you want this to happen as soon as we start your program. Okay, and it snaps onto the top. Notice it's kind of rounded up here to give kids an indication that this would be like the beginning of a sequence. Okay, so there is a green flag over here. So if I click on it, okay, now it runs the whole set of code. Okay, if you need to separate these or trash them, it works just like App Lab in that way, where you can kind of like slide it and get rid of it. Okay, anytime you see a white box like this, it's editable, so you can change. This would be the parameter. Okay, so like how much of something are we going to do? So I could say move 50 steps instead, and now the cat moves 50 steps. If you do something with movement, let me just give you a hint. Okay, notice that my cat started over here. And when I run my program, every time I run it, the cat keeps walking. Okay, eventually the cat will walk completely off the screen. Maybe they changed that so that it can't happen. Well, that's good. But when I start my program, I really want the cat to start here. All right, so there's an option for that. If you see this block under motion, it says go to X and Y. Okay. So when I first start the program, I want it to go there. So I got to figure out where that is. So let's see. Get out of there. I'm on the sprite. I did have it earlier where maybe I need to hit stop. It was, oh, it is giving me the position over here. I was looking at the size. So 191, negative 191, negative 129. So I can change that, negative 191, negative 129. Okay, so now when I start the program, it's going to start there and then it's going to move. Okay, now it moved so quickly that we didn't actually see it. So under controls, okay, there is a wait block. This is really helpful. So you can decide how many seconds, and you can even put fractions of a second in here in decimal form. So if I say 0.5 seconds, okay, now when I do it, he'll flip back there and then he'll take half a second, he'll move. I'll do that even longer so you can see it better. Okay, 1/1000, and then he moves. Okay, so that gives you an idea. You can also, with sprites, you can show or hide sprites. Like maybe you have this cat, but he's not showing up at the beginning of your story or your app, so you can show or hide the cat. And there are, under looks, there are blocks that deal with that. So show or hide. Okay, so if you want to have a second character or a second thing happening in here, I'm going to choose a sprite. Let's have a bear walking. Okay, so notice that when the bear is highlighted, all my code is gone. Okay, that's because the code is attached to sprite number 1. You can rename these, by the way. I can call this cat if I want. Okay, so this is the code related to the cat. This is the code related to the bear. Okay, I want the bear to change where he's focusing here. Well, I actually want to flip him around. I think this one will flip it. Nope, that just kind of evens it out. Okay, so anyway, you can flip it around by doing, there's like a point to direction under looks. Show, hide, go forward. You'll have to kind of like scroll through these and find some cool stuff. Point in direction, point towards. Okay, so there's definitely a flip. I would just have to find it. And the other thing you can do is you can double click and edit a sprite. And you can go to costumes. Okay, this is actually good to show you. So if I'm in costumes, you can make changes in the costume here. So let's say you wanted this to be a polar bear. Okay, which is going to look a little weird on this, but okay. So he's kind of a sort of polar bear. Okay, so this sprite, because it's part of the package, comes with different costumes. Okay, so as you can see, if I flip through the different costumes, it's actually animated. Okay, but what I would have to do in my code is I'd have to go to looks, and then I'd have to say switch a costume. Okay, so I could say on the event, and I'm going to do a different on event this time. On the event, when this sprite is clicked, I'm going to say looks, switch costume. I can actually just say next costume, right? Because like I'm going to go through this several times. And then I want it to wait a little bit, like 0.25 maybe, okay? And then I want that to happen like on a loop, right? That would be kind of fun to do on a loop. So I could do that forever here, okay? Or I could repeat it so many times, and this block will wrap around other blocks. I might have to like rearrange them like this, okay? So this will repeat 10 times when I click on the bear, switch to the next costume, wait 0.25 seconds. So let's just try that. So as you can see, I have an animated bear who has a vest in one of his costumes, okay? So that's a really helpful use of iteration, okay? Repeating, it's like a programming structure, okay? There are all kinds of things that you can do in here. If you want to drive yourself crazy, there are a bunch of sounds. Not only can you put in pre-done sounds, you can do recordings. This is great with younger kids to have them record their voice or make a noise and have that become part of the program. They love that. And when you click on the truck, make the vroom vroom noise, that kind of thing. Kids love hearing themselves in that. So looks, you can do all kinds of effects with graphics. I won't go into all of that, okay? Sounds, events. You can also make keys on your keyboard, and you won't be able to see this on my video, but you could also make this respond to keys on your keyboard, okay? So if I push the space bar, for example, I'm going to push the space bar, and that activates the bear, okay? The animation, all right? You might notice that there are some conditional statements. If you remember from human algorithm, there was a place where you had to, in your flowchart, have a decision. So if something is true, then do something, okay? You see this, that there's a blank spot, so you can put information in there. So this is a little bit tricky to think about, but these blocks fit in here, okay? So like, let's say if I want to see if something is greater than 50. So I'm going to drag that and place it in there, and it will expand to accommodate that, okay? So if what is greater than 50? Well, I can get the position of an object. Let me see if I can find where this is. This one's a little trickier to find. And you can just scroll through, okay? So, well, okay, so I'll use this one. This is going to be a little bit strange, but if my mouse, this is under sensing, okay? If my mouse position is greater than 50, okay, so it's going to be a little bit hard to kind of test this, but what do I want to have happen? I will subject you guys to a sound, but it'll just be a pop noise. So I just want to, okay, you can hear that little pop, okay? So if my mouse position on the x-axis is greater than 50, then, and I'm going to activate this whole thing on when I start the program, okay? Get rid of this. If my mouse position is greater than 50, I should hear a pop noise. So I'm going to start the program, and if I drag my mouse towards the right-hand side of the screen, no, didn't work the way I expected. Of course not. If mouse X is greater than 50. Well, I might have to do that on a forever loop. Like I want this to happen every time. Okay, so I got to restructure this here a little bit. Sorry. Let's try that. Go. Okay, so that's super annoying, but you can tell where 50 is. It's a little bit like a Geiger counter or something, right? So you can create conditional statements, and you can even nest them inside of each other. Okay. You can also, under looks, if you want to do some like storytelling, you can have a character say something. Okay. When the space bar is pressed, say hello for 2 seconds. Let me just show you what that looks like. Oops. Hello. Okay. You can change the hello. You can change how long that is. Okay. Sensing allows you to do a whole lot of stuff. Like, is there key being pressed? Is one color touching another color? There's all kinds of conditional stuff you can have going on. Okay. You can use a random number block. This one will pick a random number between 1 and 10. Okay. And we haven't gotten into this yet, but if you want to play with this, you can. It checks to see if multiple things are true. So in my if statement, I could say, if my mouse position of x is greater than 50 and my position for y is greater than 50, you'd have this, okay? And they stack within each other. I might have to put this in first. If that's true, okay, I'll put it on that side. If sensing, this is under operators, okay. Okay, so now it will do something like this. If my mouse Y position. So if my mouse Y position is greater than 50 and my mouse X position is greater than 50. So that should activate on the top corner, but not the bottom corner. Okay, so that gives you an idea. There's also some things like not, okay? You can also do some things with variables, okay? So variables, we haven't talked about variables yet, but variables are a way for the computer to store information to be retrieved and used later for some reason, okay? So I could do something like ask the player of this game or this app a question. So if I go under, let's see, there's some place where it says ask. Play sound, it's not going to be under there. Wait, controls, repeat, sensing, ask. Okay, so ask what's your name and wait. So I'm gonna put this here. I don't want it to ask it forever. What's your name and wait, and then I can store that information. And they actually have a little checkbox here for this, but you could create your own variable if you wanted to. An answer, okay, and actually that checkbox just shows you what they've answered. So I'll leave that on the screen just for your benefit. Okay, so when I push the, and you might have to push stop sometimes, when I push the green flag, okay, it's asking me what's your name, and because I coded it on the bear is asking me what my name is. So I'm going to type Jeff, and then I'm going to hit the check mark, and it should display Jeff up here. Okay, maybe I want to use that later. So maybe the cat wants to say hello to me. Okay, so under looks, I can go to say hello, but I don't want it to just say hello. I want it to say hello, Jeff. So under operators, there's an option to do something called join. Okay, so this is when you want to put multiple things together. So, and this is specifically for text. So text in computer science is usually referred to as a string type of data. String just means that whatever you type is exactly what is used or displayed. So you could say my address is 123 Main Street, and so even though it has a 123 in it, it's not going to use that for like calculating or anything. Okay, so join hello with not the word banana. We want it to hold the person's name. Okay, so if I go to variables, I don't see a variable here, but if I go to sensing, I'm going to grab answer and I'm going to pull it out. Okay, so now hopefully when I click the flag, the cat, let's see, I'll make it wait a little bit longer because I have to wait until I actually type my name in, right? See how quickly I can type my name. I'll wait 10 seconds. All right, so flag, my name's Jeff, and I hit enter, and then the cat should, after 10 seconds, say hello, Jeff, and it should stay on the screen for 2 seconds. There it is, hello Jeff. Now notice it did exactly, I don't know if you saw that, I'll run that real fast again. And I'll just put in a different name just so you can see that it's going to update depending on what's stored there. Notice that there's no space between hello and the name. Okay, so this is where computers do exactly what you tell them. So if you want a space, you actually have to add a space after hello, and then when we run it, we should see it. Okay, so Jerry, and it should say hello Jerry. And if I want the exclamation point or something afterwards, I could do another join. So you can put a join within a join. You could do that forever. Okay, so that just gives you some brief ideas about how to do some things with this. If you want to create your own variables, like score, for example, if you want to make like a game, you can click make a variable. Okay, and I'm going to say score, and then I want it to be available for all sprites here. I'm going to click OK. All right, so now I have a new variable called score, and I could set the beginning of the thing. I could set, I'm going to use the drop down score. I could set score to 0 to start the game, and then I could change the score. Let's make it so every time I click on the bear, I change the score or hit the space bar. Change when a space bar is pressed. Change the score by, I'll say 5, just so you can kind of see it. So I'm going to run it. My name's Dan. Okay, and every time I push the space bar, the score should go up by 5. Oh, see, it only did it the one time because I need to have a forever loop wrapped around it. So I know this seems like I'm going pretty quickly through this. It isn't my goal that you guys make this like nonsense sort of animation thing. I am going to send you some videos that show you how to make specific projects with kids. It comes from a presenter I saw at the ISTE conference from New Zealand. And he tries to integrate computer science into the content areas of his elementary and middle schools. So he has these tutorials for students to follow to do things that have applications within the content areas. So that's what I really want to get you to, but I didn't want to just throw you in here. The other thing that I want to show you, 2 quick things, my blocks, okay? You can make a block. This is the same thing as creating your own function in AppLab. So remember, in AppLab you could package together a set of steps that you were going to use again, and you could name it and then reuse it. Okay, so that's a place where you can make that happen. The other place I'll point you to, which is super helpful, is tutorials. Before I leave this screen though, I want to show you 2 things. If you go to File, you can now save it, save now. Okay, you'll want to name it something first. Okay, so you will want to save these so that you can send them to me. The easiest way to send them is to click share, okay, and then you get a chance to, that's funny, you get a chance to name it here, and then you can leave some instructions. Boy, see, sounds get you in trouble. And then you can copy the link over here and send it to me, okay? You could choose to make this available on the Scratch website publicly, and then you can get feedback from people. People can remix your project. There's a whole lot of stuff with remixing, okay? But tutorials, if I click on tutorials, okay, there's a whole bunch of tutorials here that will take you step by step through making games, making animations, getting characters that talk, creating a story, making music. There's a ton of these here, okay? So this is available to you, and I encourage you to look through some. What I'm hoping is that you create something meaningful for your work. So either your work with kids, or if you want to try to do something, work with staff, you could make like a staff meeting quiz about a policy you have, or something like that. That could be kind of fun. But think about what you could do for your staff and students, and what students could do, because the real power here is when students create these things themselves. Okay, so think about that. I'm going to send you links to some sample projects and more details about the Scratch project today.